Doesn't help you a lot. Yes. This committee meeting is now resumed. You ready? Yes. Okay. So members, for your guidance, having regard to the amendments which have been circulated, consideration of clause 1 shall be deferred until we consider the proposed insertion of new clause 10. The approval of the insertion of new clause 10 will require a consequential amendment to the title of the bill. So we will really start at clause 2.
Clause 2.
The question is that clause 2 stand part of the bill. Minister of Finance.
Yes, Madam Chairman, we have circulated some amendments, and it's really to try and capture every possible circumstance, so that in subsection 2 of clause 2, in paragraph A, we are introducing a provision which is identical to what was there in 2016. In the 2016 tax amnesty brought to this House by myself, we had given an amnesty on penalties and interest if tax is paid prior or during the amnesty period. So we're simply, I did it in 2016. So I did not say that. So we're introducing the words, after the words tax is paid, the words prior to or in paragraph A. In paragraph B, we're inserting after the words on any. So outstanding interest charge on any tax, we're inserting after the words on any outstanding tax. The word outstanding, so it will be outstanding tax. And also in that paragraph B, we are inserting the words after the words tax is paid, prior to or. Okay, so it will be tax that's paid prior to or during the amendment. And then in paragraph C, we are making sure we capture everything, so it's not just outstanding tax, because tax may become due and payable during the amnesty period. It's a 3-month period, so tax may become due then. And so we're putting in tax or outstanding tax or interest. And again, the same amendment with respect to, in para C, penalties on tax paid prior to. So that's the amendment to clause 2 as circulated.
Member for Siberia?
We don't need to put the question first.
Well, no, I thought you might have had a
comment.
a comment.
Yes.
Yes.
Minister, may I first say that we on this side have no difficulty whatsoever with the tax amnesty, except my question would be, why are you starting this period tomorrow, 15th of June, when Saturday is a holiday, well, not a working day, Sunday is not a working day? So in effect, you're reducing the prescribed period, because I'm asking, why is it in clause 2? First, I said we have no problems with the VAT amnesty. We support it, with the tax amnesty. Secondly, clause 2 says the prescribed period, which is the period of the amnesty, starts tomorrow, which is Saturday, and then on Sunday. So there are 2 days that you will lose in the prescribed period. No. Would you want, no? But if it starts tomorrow,
The-
can you deal with it on tomorrow?
amnesty becomes effective on the 15th of
Yeah.
June. Throughout the period, there will be Saturdays and Sundays where persons can't
Well, we have two
file.
holidays next week as well.
Yes, I know, but it doesn't matter. The amnesty is effective from the 15th because it's a benefit, so it's retroactive to the 15th. Okay? And the BIR has already met with me, and they're going to deal with it administratively. I made the point that this goes to the Senate on Monday. There may be amendments, so the House will be returning here on Tuesday, so that the bill will probably be assented to on Friday, because Wednesday and Thursday are public holidays, but the amnesty will take effect from tomorrow.
But no one will be able to go in and claim that benefit.
Yeah.
Because the offices will be closed.
Yes, they won't.
Please explain, please.
Mr.
clarify.
Chair, Madam Chair, could I also assist? If you look at, well, first of all, Madam Chair, we have to do one small insertion to paragraph D, which is not in the circulated amendments. After the word filed in paragraph D, we'd need to insert the similar prior to or. That's not circulated, right? And then to answer the question coming from the member for Siparia, if we kept the date as the 15th of June, it would mean that anybody that filed on Monday while it's being debated, having anticipated
If we didn't
that it was
keep it
coming
as
in.
June.
No, if we keep it as 15th June and don't change it, because the leader's saying, look, let's put the date forward. But the population, knowing that this was coming and knowing that it was debated, some of them may already have sent it to their accountants for lodging. So if we lock it in as at the 15th, it means that they take advantage of the administrative arrangements that the BIR has in place for Monday.
AG, let me just ask the Leader of the Opposition, could you elaborate? Could you clarify what is
I'm
troubling
simply-
you? What's troubling
I'm
you?
simply saying to give persons more time,
Oh,
that you
oh.
extend it by a week
All right,
perhaps. Instead of,
okay.
you have two holidays next week.
All right,
We
let
have
me-
the Saturday and the Sunday, just give it a little more
Okay,
time.
Leader of Opposition, just hold. If you look at 2(1)B, you will see the Minister of Finance is being given a power to extend the date.
Where's 2(1)B?
2(1)B.
First page,
2(1)B.
clause 2.
Okay,
2(1)B.
same, okay, fine.
Right, so, but it may be extended, but not beyond the 30th of September, because we need these.
31st of?
It may not, it may be
And
extended,
if it is?
but not beyond the 30th of September. That's the thinking at this time, because we want the funds in this
Yeah,
fiscal year.
for this fiscal year.
Yeah, okay?
I
But that,
do.
that would allow an extra 2 days or 3 days if there's an issue. Okay?
Minister, we have these, throughout this bill, there is a pattern where you're asking for the Parliament to give the minister the power to do certain things by order. This is just one of them. But you've now told the House you do not intend to go beyond a certain date.
Not at this time.
But in these others, we don't have it, and I think it is somewhat offensive, not offensive in the sense of bad, but against making law where it is that power is given to the minister by the Parliament. There is no coming back to the Parliament, whether by way of affirmative resolution of the Parliament or negative resolution of the Parliament. So the Parliament has no oversight of these orders. If it is you're giving the undertaking not beyond 31st of September, we have no problem with that. 30th of September,
As the thinking at this time.
30th, before the budget.
Because
year.
if I extend it beyond the 30th, funds will come in the next fiscal year.
Certainly, I understand you need money
So
this year.
that's the
and
thinking at
next
this
year.
time. Just want to be very clear.
Sure.
That's the thinking at this
We are
time.
supporting this.
Right.
Madam, I thank you for your time.
The question is that clause 2 be amended as circulated. Those in favor say aye. Sorry, yes, yes.
In
Yes, that
paragraph D.
clause 2 be amended as circulated, and also clause 2(2)D be amended to include the words prior to or between the word filed and during. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. You want the division here or on the next question I'll put? Okay. I'm not looking for you for affirmation. No. Proceed.
It's okay.
I think you'll ask for a division. And I am allowing it. I'm just letting members know that a division is not given as of right.
It's at your discretion.
Thank you.
For kindly allowing the division.
Well, it's not so kind, but it's also a warning that it's not going to be encouraged, that's the word, as a practice.
Mr. Imbers?
Yes.
Dr. Rowley?
Aye.
Mr. Alwari?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Dialse?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson Regis?
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell?
Aye.
Ms. Cujo?
Aye.
Mr. Garcia?
Yes.
Mrs. Critchlow Coburn?
Aye.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Mr. Dillon?
Aye.
Mrs. Webster Roy?
Aye.
Dr. Gatsby Dolly?
Aye.
Ms. McDonald?
Yes.
Dr. Francis?
Yes.
Mrs. Jennings Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Oliver?
Aye.
Mr. Antwine?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Coffey?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mrs. Basad Bisasso?
Yes.
So used to say no.
Mr. Charles?
Yes.
Dr. Rambachan?
Yes.
Mr. Karen?
Yes.
Dr. Tiwari?
Aye.
Dr. Munilal?
Aye.
Mrs. Nuwalu Hussain?
Yes.
Dr. Gopi Singh?
Yes.
Mrs. Gaideen Gopi Singh?
Yes.
Mr. Indara Singh?
Yes.
Mr. Ramadan?
Yes.
Mr. Padara?
Yes.
Dr. Budo?
Yes.
Mr. Pari?
Yes.
Ms. Ramdial?
Yes.
Mr. Singh?
Yes.
Mr. Hines?
Yes.
Honorable members, on a division, 39 members voted for, no members voted against, no members abstained, so that the question has passed. The question is that clause 2, as amended, now stand part of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it.
Clause 3?
The question is that clause 3 stand part of the bill. I have two sets of amendments here for clause 3. I think having regard to the amendments, I will take the opposition's amendment first. Member for Superior.
Madam Speaker, Madam Chair, I propose an amendment that clause 3 be deleted, and my reasons are as follows. 1, this clause is with respect to retired legislators and legislators. Retiring Allowances Legislative Service Act amended. Firstly, I am not in agreement that the salary of a legislator is now to be defined as including a housing allowance and a personal allowance for the purposes of pensions or emoluments. Madam Speaker, at the moment, the law governing allowances to parliamentarians, legislators, has to do with the 98th SRC report, which was in 2014. And that SRC report, nowhere in that SRC report is there any item known as a personal allowance. And I will ask the Honourable Minister if you can help us to define what is in this salary definition as being a personal allowance. I've looked at the SRC report for all parliamentarians, judges, everybody else. But for the parliamentarians, certainly ministers, cabinet ministers, for the opposition, there are no allowances. These allowances are for ministers, parliamentary secretaries, and non-cabinet ministers. What is the definition, what is the meaning of personal allowance when there's not such an item in the SRC report for any legislator?
Minister of Finance.
Madam Chairman, what the opposition leader said is simply untrue. The retiring allowance applies to the highest position the person ever held. There are members of the opposition. It's not sure. Let me speak, please, because you had your chance. There are members like the member for Tabakit, the member of Chaguanas East, the member for Caroni Central, the member for Chaguanas East, West, the member for Oropouche East, the member for St. Augustine, the member for Caroni East, among others, who, and, yes, member of Cuba North, who had other allowances during their tenure either as parliamentary secretaries, non-cabinet ministers, or cabinet ministers, and they will benefit. Your members will benefit from this amendment. I just want to make that very clear. Sure. So it is wrong to say that members of the opposition will not benefit. A lot of members of the opposition will benefit. And the personal allowance was something we simply harmonized the definition of pensionable emoluments with what is in the Pensions Act for public servants for the last 85 years.
Member for Superior.
Yeah,
Yes, and this also would apply to former members of cabinet who may have been members of your party. Sure. They too would get the enhanced pensions.
Sir, that
so
is
don't
not,
pretend it's not
sir,
you.
Through you, madam, that is not the point I raised. Firstly, I am raising the point that there is nothing under the SRC report that a parliamentarian gets, whether minister in my time, minister before my time, minister after my time. There is nothing termed personal allowance. I am asking you to kindly tell us what is meant by personal allowance, so we'll get an idea that, for example, you go in the SRC report, you see the housing allowance. And I'll come back to that when we get to another provision. There's something called a housing allowance that each minister gets, and each non-cabinet ministers, they have something called a housing allowance, which they get by virtue of doing the job. We are now saying you must take the housing allowance and add it to your basic salary when you are no longer in a job, you're going to retire. The purpose for having that housing allowance was to enable you whilst you were serving in a job. So that's one point. I come back, and I'll come back to that in a second. What is the meaning? Which one of the things in the SRC report that former parliamentarians got, former ministers got, present ones are getting, which of that is to be deemed personal allowance?
Will I be allowed to speak, Madam Chairman?
Yes.
First, let me correct you again. The persons who are eligible to receive pension benefits under the Pensions Act have retired, but their pension is computed on addition of their salary, whatever it was when they were in the service, plus their housing allowance, whatever it was when they were in the service. So it is not correct to say that persons have retired are no longer eligible for housing allowance. We are taking the existing Pensions Act, which has been in force since 1934, and we are taking the words out of that. The SRC report is not before us. What is before us is a harmonization of what's in the 85-year-old Pensions Act and these acts.
Attorney General, just before I take you, may I take the member for Urupuch East?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think I want to ask.
Check it yourself.
I want to ask the question to the minister this way. The minister, in the last SRC report, it says nothing of personal allowance. But could I ask you this way? It's saying, are you interpreting things like duty allowance, transport, all of that as personal allowance? Because there's no category called personal allowance for minister of government. So I just want to know if you are including all the other allowance as personal. That's all.
That's a different question.
Madam Chairman, I think we're getting a little mischievous now. We are not debating the SRC report. We are taking a definition that is in the 85-year-old Pensions Act and harmonizing for legislators and for judges.
Could I then
Full
ask this
stop.
question?
And I want to make it clear, we on this side do not interpret things in the Salaries Review Commission report and change the meaning
Okay.
and add them on.
Could
We
I
do
ask
not
the
do that.
minister in a practical sense now? Could you just indicate to me for current minister of government, how much money they get every month as a personal allowance? Simple.
Ministers don't get personal allowance.
What have you put the personal allowance to compute pension if they are not getting none?
There's nothing to compute.
Yeah, but why are you putting in the amendment inclusive of personal allowance if you are now telling me they get none?
So,
That is the
Madam
question.
Chairman.
Minister of Finance, I would then call on the Attorney General.
Right.
Thank you.
Please help.
Madam Chair, it's a fundamental feature of law that you make the law such that it can speak continuously. We're moving the Parliament at this particular point to amend the law, the Parent Act. It's the only way that we can treat with it. We don't contemplate the vagaries, and I'll say that specifically of an SRC report. The SRC reports come from time to time. They're presented to a cabinet. A cabinet then decides what it will or will not accept from the SRC report. And then that report, the cabinet then takes a step to have that come into terms and conditions. That's published, and then the Minister of Finance's circular does a certain amount of perfection. The public servants at present have the personal allowances, but it is reasonably contemplated that the personal allowances will come into effect because the SRC is in fact treating with these things as we speak in their review aspects. If at present the thing is at zero, it means you'll get zero. If and when it actually comes into effect, it's at that point the basket becomes full in those senses. So you can't get from a zero more than a zero. However, if you create the category of positions, personal allowances, it's at that point that it comes in.
Attorney General is suggesting that they are putting into the law personal allowance, which doesn't exist anywhere at this time, in the event that the 99th report of the SRC will include personal allowance. Now, surely I don't think that is an approach that we could adopt. All I ask is a current minister now, how much MONEY they get as a personal allowance. There's none. So you're putting that in now in contemplation. Now, is it that the government has a good idea what will be in the 99th report? You have a good idea that Cabinet will accept it, and you have a good idea that the Parliament will accept it? Otherwise, you're putting into the law what don't exist.
I think that was made clear. Okay? Yes, this is on your clause 3.
Clause 3.
Yes.
The minister mentioned, by way of clarification on the issue of personal allowance, I'm not going back there, but spoke of the Pensions Act talking about a personal allowance. But that is because those workers those policemen, whoever they are, teachers, etc., their package, their salary package includes something called personal allowance. And then when the Pension Act comes, it gives them only 1/6 of that amount of money in terms of allowances that can be joined to the salary to deduct, to compute pension. So when this goes to a public, when we pass it here, it goes to a public servant. What is a public servant to compute?
That is also incorrect. There's no reference to the personal allowance being apportioned in any way.
But that's the point.
It does not say that.
You say the pension, salary now
The
means personal
Pensions
allowance.
Act does not apportion the personal allowance of a public servant.
It does, and I'll show it to you in a
Does
minute.
not. If you can show it to me,
1/6,
please show
yes,
it to me.
I will. Just pull up the Pensions Act for me and have it here. 1/6, I think.
Does
That point
not.
was made in the debate. 1/6 Pensions Act.
I am
Okay,
certain
the
it does
second
not.
part of this was.
You are wrong.
Just one minute,
Okay,
just one
okay.
minute, Minister of Finance.
On
Yes,
the-
Member for Superior.
Thank you, madam. On the housing allowance. Again, ministers are given a housing allowance. I made the point. This is a policy decision that the government has taken to now include a housing allowance, which was being paid whilst you were on the job to get it when you retire. I'm saying we do not agree with that policy position, and that's as far as I'll go with that. And yeah, look for the emoluments there for me. Then now with 6B, capital B, still in clause 3. This is new in our law. This is what they say, indexing the pensions, in a sense to protect against inflation. We do not have this for any other worker.
What clause are you on? But we're not on 6?
Same 3B, where you want to insert a 6, capital B. Okay. What, yeah, oh yes. Minister, if I may remind you, you quoted the Pensions Act in your.
It does not say what you say.
It says 1/6
Of what?
pensioner emoluments in respect of service under the government includes salary, personal allowance, increment allowance, house allowance, estimated value of free quarters, any fee paid out of the treasury by way of salary, except the amount to be allowed for house rent.
House rent,
Except the amount to be.
not house
May I
allowance.
please finish?
Go on.
Personal allowance, inducement allowance, not just house rent.
Go on.
Personal allowance, house allowance, free value of quarters, fees paid out of treasury by way of salary, except that the amount to be allowed for house rent or estimated value of free quarters shall not exceed 1/6, nor the amount to be allowed for fees 1/4 of the actual salary.
It says
of the
nothing
office.
about apportioning the housing allowance. Nothing.
So what is it 1/6 for, sir?
It's there.
Yes, what does it
It's
say?
different.
I just read
It
it
says
for you.
nothing about housing allowance.
1/6.
The house rent.
She asked what was going to house the public.
It says house rent.
That was it,
All right,
show the personal
ju-
allowance, and I moved
just-
on.
Just,
You know you're wrong.
just
Say
one
house
minute,
rent.
Madam Chair.
Minister of Finance.
No, but it's ridiculous.
All right, Minister of Finance, do you have an explanation?
Madam,
Your
Madam
only
Chairman,
explanation to say it's house rent and not house allowance.
not only that, it also refers to fees. It says the amount of
1/6.
fees that are added on are a quarter, and the amount of house rent that is added on is a sixth. It says nothing about apportioning the housing allowance.
Madam Chair.
Nothing.
The leader of the opposition was asking, she painted the mischief very squarely. She said, in putting forward this language, quote unquote, how is the public servant going to compute this thing by virtue of apportionment? And the simple position is that this law that we're looking at, the Legislative Service Act, Retiring Allowances Legislative Service Act, we're not dealing with the apportionment of those aspects. So this law
Madam Speaker, we have-
and the
we have
SRC
been mixing
and
the
the,
personal
you know, I
allowance
didn't, I
together
didn't
with
speak while you were
House.
speaking,
All right,
you know.
Back and
So,
forth on
all
both
right,
of them.
okay. Honorable members,
We dealt
if
with
we
the
don't
personal
allow,
allowance.
if we don't allow each other to
House
complete
rent.
our submissions, then I don't think it would be conducive to there being some
They're mixing
clarification.
apples and oranges.
All right, so that, Member for Superior, I'll take you again, just let me hear the Attorney General.
Yes, Madam Chair, first of all, for this legislation to apply to you, you must qualify. In your qualification, the base qualification is that you have served for 5 full years to get into the basket. The second aspect is that it's being treated as at the highest position you held. If your highest position was on the government side, you are an elected MP, or on another side, an elected MP, but if you were a government minister, you had, oh gosh, Siparia.
Yep,
So you're just going to babble while I talk?
Member for Superior and Attorney General, I think, Member for Superior, if you just want to be a bit anticipatory, let's see if by the time the Attorney General is finished with his explanation, a little more light is shed.
Madam Chair, I'm saying that there are different categories of persons. There will be some people who will have qualified and have held the position as a minister of government, and the effective package that the minister of government received is being applied in this definition here. When we look to the definition of salary, we're saying in this law that it should be inclusive of personal allowance and housing allowance. And what we're saying inside of there is that that is absolutely clear. One, if and when a personal allowance is applied, at least the law contemplates it. Two, the housing allowance is in fact there. And the housing allowance is not just to do your job. It was to attract you to do a full-time job. Because as a minister, you're doing a full-time job. As an opposition member, you're not, according to the SRC, doing a full-time job. However, opposition members who held ministerial portfolios and who qualify and who retire will take the highest position, which includes their housing allowance. So we ought not to confuse this situation by going to the Pensions Act or going to an SRC report, which has to be approved by a cabinet. This law stands on its own.
Member for Superior.
Thank you very much. We had dealt with the issue of the personal allowance and so on. I had moved on. The AG has gone back. They're taking up the issue of what I'm saying about personal allowance, housing allowance. I'm saying we do not share that policy position as the government. We are not of the view that personal allowances and housing allowances should be included. And I went on to 3B, excuse me, which is going to insert after 6A the following section, 6B. This is to say a person is eligible on every 5th anniversary of the date he ceased to be a legislator for revised retiring allowance calculated on the basis of the salary payable to a legislator on that date. What you're doing here now is you're shifting the goalpost down. Somebody was sitting there and was quite young, and there are many of them. In whatever years to come, when they reach the age to retire, what is going to happen, they will be getting the pension of the sitting person, madam, of the person who's actually sitting in the position. This is indexation. This is protection for inflation. It is not in any of the pension schemes, whether it be NIS, whether it be old age or senior citizens, whether it be for police officers, whether it be for teachers, defense force, all the thousands of people who work for the government, they do not have an indexation provision such as is being proposed here. I am of a respectful view until such time that they can really harmonize the pension laws, or the word they're using today is yet streamlining, but of course they're only streamlining for particular office holders, that this should not be put into the law for this 5-year review, that every 5 years you're going to review and give you what it is that person, based on the salary, a sitting person will be getting. So you will have people... It is discriminatory. It is discriminatory against the other pension schemes in Trinidad and Tobago. We do not share that policy position, and that is why, for those various reasons, we are saying that this clause be deleted. But there's another point. The government of the day, including, I think it's from 2015, hired a firm of consultants to prepare a report for a job evaluation exercise for officers under the purview of the Salaries and Review Commissions. So who pays for it? Who pays for it? Madam, this is under the government. No, please, you will have your turn.
Just 1 minute,
If you don't
please.
like what I'm saying, you will have your turn.
Attorney
No, I'm a
General and
2x4 lawyer.
others, just let
Never mind.
Member for Superior finish
You can't
our
have your say every
submission,
minute.
please?
Yes, I'm saying the sum of $8.8 million allocated by the Minister of Finance and approved by this Parliament has been paid for the conduct of a job evaluation exercise for officers under the purview of the SRC, and these persons, the legislators, are under the purview of the SRC. That project is intended to be completed by the end of this year. Why is the government, I raised before the issue of the constitutional role of the SRC to look after salaries and terms and conditions of us? Why is it that we are bypassing this report, which will come to us soon, to put into place the retiring amendments in a discriminatory manner, Madam Speaker?
Like
So
to
we do
answer
not
that?
support clause 3.
Firstly,
We do not
All
support
right, so
clause 3.
Minister of
Firstly,
Finance.
it is counterintuitive. There is no law that allows Parliament to prescribe the salaries of legislators. Madam Speaker, I didn't say a word when she was talking. I didn't
Okay,
laugh
so,
either.
Member for Superior, I think we, when you made your last submission, we have moved to a different understanding of how we operate, so let's abide by that. Minister of Finance.
Yes, Madam Chairman. There is no law on our books that allows the Parliament to determine the salaries and allowances of legislators. However, there are numerous laws dealing with pensions, Madam Chairman. President's pension, Prime Minister's pension, public service pension, legislator pension, judge's pension, police pension. There are numerous laws, Madam Speaker. And by the way, police officers are entitled to get a pension up to 92% of their last salary. 92%, Madam Chairman, Madam Chairman, she's being disrespectful.
Constantly.
Disrespectful. I am asking you to ask her to stop talking.
Member for Superior, I think if we pay attention, it may help us all. And Member for Naprima, please. Okay, as you saw in the last committee hearing, you made a very valuable contribution. So everybody has a very valuable, no, you, Member for Naprima, you don't remember that?
No, you can't do this.
Okay. So let's respect the fact that we all have valuable contributions to make, but we must listen.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. As I indicated, there are numerous laws in our system providing for pensions for categories of officers: police service, judges, prime minister, legislators, president, and so on, and public servants. And as I said, as an aside, in the law governing the pension of police officers, if they serve long enough, they can get up to 92% of their highest salary, whereas legislators are restricted to 66 1/3. I just wanted to put that on the record, that legislators are still restricted to 2/3 of their highest salary, whereas a police officer, if he serves long enough, can get up to 92%, and a judge could get up to 85%. Just want to put that on the record. And the Parliament, in its wisdom, I'm formulating a point here, the Parliament, in its wisdom, the framers of the Constitution, in their wisdom, gave legislators the right to amend the pension laws of this country. The President's pension, the legislator's pension, the police pension. The Parliament has the right to adjust, amend pension laws in this country. The SRC deals with salaries and allowances, Madam Chairman. I just want to make that distinction. If it was intended that legislators could not amend pension laws, then what's the point of them? If that was the intention, that we as legislators who make laws, and there are a series of pension laws, if it was the intention if it were the intention that we are not entitled to amend those laws, then we might as well not have them on the books. We might as well not have a parliament. We are here to make laws, and we have made pension laws on numerous occasions. We have amended pension laws on numerous occasions, and we will, in the future, amend pension laws on numerous occasions. And now I come to a particular, I'm not finished. And now I come to a particular amendment which was proposed by the member for Siparia in 2009, Madam Chairman, when we amended the President's Emoluments Act. The amendment to the President's Emoluments Act is virtually identical to the item here that the member is complaining about. And that was promoted by and supported by the member for Siparia. And the member for Siparia went further in that debate to recommend that this also apply to spouses of presidents. I am explaining, Madam Chairman, I'm explaining why we're doing this. This is more disrespect,
Okay.
more disrespect.
All right, so, Minister of Finance, are you finished?
No, I'm nearly finished.
Minister of Finance, are you finished?
Nearly finished.
Minister of Finance, are you finished?
No, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much. Yes, you may proceed.
I am about to finish now. The member of Siparia lobbied for this provision to apply to spouses of retired presidents when we debated that. Because the original bill, which the member for Siparia supported, had this wording in it, that when, for the president, on every 6th anniversary, you reset the pension. And the member for Siparia asked us to make that applicable to spouses of retired presidents as well. And therefore it is, in my view, politically hypocritical to come now and dissociate herself with this amendment, which she was the author of for the President's Emoluments Act in 2009.
Member for Old Puchis.
Ridiculous.
Member for Old Puchis.
Madam Speaker, to remind that we are not in a debate. The issue here was a simple issue, whether the minister felt it was fair, given the economic circumstances of the country, given the pensions to various workers in the public service, that members, legislators, members of parliament can index their pension every 5 years, regardless of the time that they ended their service and the intervening period when they will become eligible for retirement benefits.
Minister of Finance.
I think it's fair that retired UNC ministers who are in poverty get this benefit. I think it's fair that retired legislators of all persuasions who are in poverty get this benefit. I think it's fair that retired judges and chief justices.
We are not on
who are
retired judges at this time.
Members.
Why are they so jumpy?
Members, please.
I was asked if it was fair.
Yes.
And he referred to other categories of workers in the
yes.
country.
All right.
So I'm referring to other categories of workers in the country. In response, I think it's fair that retired judges who are in poverty get this benefit. I think it's totally fair that somebody has served a lifetime in the parliament or on the bench and is getting a pittance as a pension of a couple $1,000 deserves this benefit. Yes, I think it's fair.
Member for Naparima.
Minister, comfortable, I'm not using the word fear, comfortable with the fact that the only category of workers, employees, etc., in Trinidad and Tobago and in the history of Trinidad and Tobago to get an index salary are parliamentarians, judges, etc. And the question is,
Judges didn't get an index.
sorry, and the question is, I mean, this sets the trend for the trade unions, etc. And would you, with a straight face, be able to tell trade unionists when they use this as an example? It would seem as if we are dealing with ourselves and helping ourselves rather than the general population of Trinidad and Tobago. So I think it's a bad precedent.
Is it a statement or a question?
But
But
it
it was inaccurate because we're not dealing with salaries. It's a completely
We deal
false
with
misrepresentation.
pension benefits then.
The member said salaries. We're not dealing with salaries.
Okay, so I'm going
Misrepresentation.
this is still on clause 3?
Yes, ma'am.
And I'll take you as last and,
Thank you.
and then I'll put the question.
The question about salaries as versus pensions, I think we're losing sight of the fact that your pension is going to be based on what your salary is. That's what it's saying. We are now enlarging the definition of salary by including personal allowance and housing allowance. Madam Speaker, the minister spoke about others getting certain money. Do we know what is the salary of a police officer? And that is what his basic salary, his pension is going to be, percentage of that salary, whatever was the highest that he would have earned. And when we compare that to the salaries of a minister of government of $41,000 plus $12,000 for housing, your pension is going to be based on that. But for the policeman who gets as a constable, I'm told is what, about 6,000?
Correct. And 1/8 allowance.
And 80, so about $7,000. What is going to give you the pension? And that's what I think my colleagues were saying, that in this time, why are we giving ourselves?
Well, I'm going to answer that.
No, the minister
answer
spoke of the police. He's been specific.
We'll
He
answer
said
that.
they get something, 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 and how it's based. What is their salary? And their pensions are based on that. But we're talking about very small amounts when we compare it to what the legislators would get when you leave this. Again, we say we do not support this
Minister of Finance.
amendment.
Madam Chairman, it is wrong to compare the lowest level in the police service with the highest level in the legislative service or the judicial service. That's a false analogy. You should look at perhaps the highest level in the police service. And if someone had served as a police officer for the requisite number of years and reached the position of commissioner of police and reached the level of commissioner of police, Madam Chairman, this is
Members,
getting
please.
ridiculous.
Members,
Disrespectful.
members, if we continue like this, we are going to be here until Monday morning. Minister of Finance.
Yes, the member has no respect.
Minister of Finance.
Thank you. If someone at the highest level in the police service has served for the requisite number of years and qualifies for the 92% of their salary, I can assure you they'll be getting a higher pension than many, if not all, retired members of parliament.
Okay, so I'm now going to put the question.
It's a completely false analogy.
I shall
on the
now
part
put
of
the question,
member
Minister of Finance.
Of Fosse Parish.
The question is that clause 3 be amended as circulation by the opposition, which means, in effect, that clause 3 be deleted. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no.
Division. Standing order 58, please.
Okay, I think I heard a resounding no, much over aye, and therefore the noes have it. I don't see the need for division. I shall now put, the question is that clause 3 stand part of the bill. Minister of Finance. Minister of Finance. Clause 3.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This was something that was suggested to us. Madam Speaker, Member Sipari is continuously making noise.
Minister of Finance, I've told you before, you create a sense of excitement all the time.
I don't agree with you, Madam Chair.
Clause 3.
She has no discipline.
Clause 3, member.
Thank you. We're adding the words.
Well, it seems like none of us have nothing to do on Saturday and Sunday. But you see, member, for oral approach, a double negative is a positive. So you've just said that we all have something to do on Saturday and Sunday. And I would like us all to respect that. Okay? So let's try again, Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This was in fact suggested to us by learned legal luminary, that in order to capture persons who have already retired and are in poverty, which seems you don't care about on that side, that we include the words, including a retired legislator, including one of your members who is not earning your $60,000 pension, which you earn $60,000 a month.
Okay. Minister of Finance. Minister of Finance. I know we may be tired. It's almost 12 hours that we're here. What I would ask you, Zoe, is to try and refrain from being personal. It may help. It may assist us in getting through this.
Thank
Okay?
you, Madam Chairman.
All right. Member for Puchis, you have a contribution. Member for Siparia, you have a contribution.
Which clause are we on now?
We're still on 3, as circulated by the government. You may have exhausted it based on what
Madam,
what you
I've had my
circulated?
comments. We are not in support of it. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, so I'll now put the question. The question is that clause 3 be amended as circulated by the government. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those against say no. No. I think the ayes have it. I think
Why are
the
you
ayes have it.
challenging the speaker?
The question is that clause 3,
You hear this man? You hear this man?
Reconsider 57 and 58, please, standing orders 57 and 58. If you would kindly reconsider, there is nothing here which takes the discretion of the speaker. Once the division is called
You're
for,
challenging the
the
speaker.
division, I'm asking the speaker to
She
kindly
made a
consider
ruling already.
57
Minister of
and
Finance, but
58.
you're committing the very complaint.
That you are
That's
accusing
true,
me
I
of.
apologize.
Okay. Yes, I mean, any member for support.
Ma'am, I would ask you to kindly consider, I could read it, or I could ask you to kindly consider 57(8). There is nothing in the standing order which says if the ayes are louder than the noes, the speaker has a discretion. It says clearly, at the conclusion of debate upon any question, the speaker or chairman shall put that question for decision of the House and shall collect the voice of the ayes and the noes, after which no further debate. This is a collection of voices. The result shall be declared by the speaker or chairman stating, I think the ayes have it, or I think the noes have it, as the case may be. But any member may challenge the opinion of the chair by calling a division. And Standing Order 58 then reads for us, if a division is called for, it shall be taken by the clerk, calling each member's name individually and recording each vote accordingly. The clerk shall then announce the numbers and so on. So in my respectful submission, Madam, whilst there are other standing orders which give a discretion to the speaker, I say with the greatest of respect that 57 and 58 does not give that discretion, and I ask you to kindly reconsider your ruling. 57, 58.
Mr. Imbert?
Yes.
Dr. Rowley? Mr. Alwari?
Aye.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Dialse?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson Regis?
Aye.
Mr. Hines?
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell?
Aye.
Ms. Cujo?
Aye.
Mr. Garcia?
Yes?
Mrs. Critchlow-Coburn?
Aye.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Mr. Dillon?
Aye.
Mrs. Webster Roy?
Aye.
Dr. Gatsby Dolly?
Aye.
Ms. McDonald?
Yes.
Dr. Francis?
Yes.
Mrs. Jennings-Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Oliver?
Aye.
Mr. Antwine?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Coffey?
Yes?
Mr. Lee?
No.
Mrs. Pasad-Bisessa?
No.
Mr. Charles?
No.
Dr. Rambachan?
No.
Mr. Karam?
No.
Dr. Tiwari?
No.
Dr. Munilal?
No.
Mrs. Nuwalu Hussein?
No.
Dr. Gopi Singh?
No.
Mrs. Guyadeen Gopi Singh,
No.
Mr. Indar Singh,
No.
Mr. Ramadan,
No.
Mr. Padara,
No.
Dr. Boudou,
No.
Mr. Parry,
No.
Ms. Ramdial,
No.
Mr. Singh,
Yes.
To help
On a division, 23 members voted for, 16 members voted against. Honorable members, the very complaint that the two members who complain have are the people committing the infractions. Okay? So Minister of Finance, member for Superior. Okay, so on a division, 23 members for, 16 members, I'm sorry, against, no abstention. So that the question is carried. The question is that clause 3, as amended by the government, now stands part of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it.
Clause 4,
The question is that clause 4 stand part of the bill. Member for Superior.
I beg to move that clause 4 be deleted as circulated in the amendments. My objections are similar to what happened for clause 3, that is to say, where salary is now to include housing and personal allowance. Again, there is nothing we know of as a personal allowance being paid to Her Excellency the President.
Excuse me, with the members, all members, kindly pay attention because they may have a valuable contribution to make. Member for Superior.
Yes, on the issue of the personal allowance, again, there is nothing identifiable as a personal allowance paid to Her Excellency the President or any president. And secondly, the housing allowance. This means now that the President's pensions will be predicated upon a full payment, which is in the law, of the present salary of the President, which is salary of $64,270. And interesting, unlike for prime ministers, there is a dollar value given to the housing allowance for the president, which is $28,000 per month, giving a grand total of $92,270, which should be the full pension, unless something comes in the future to add to that as a personal allowance. So again, the issue of the housing allowance, where you were given this super great housing, serving in the office of president. Why is it when you retire, I don't have to give you a housing allowance? As I say in policy, we do not support that policy of having housing included in the computation of pensions. And the same question again, Madam, with respect to the review, the conduct of a job evaluation exercise for officers under the review of the SRC, $8.8 million already expended to deal with the terms and conditions and salaries of these office holders. Again, the pension is predicated on those terms. So my objection to 4A, and again, same objection here, except for the president, there is an existing every 6 years, a review to be given, which the Honourable Minister pointed out. But I find it passing strange that unlike some of the other provisions, which I will not go into, there is an option 2 under the President's Emoluments Act, which is not included here, whereas the option 2 is included for judges, and I'll come to them when we get to that clause, and that option 2 is for former prime ministers. So this president will be going in having annual salary, including personal allowance and housing allowance, going in with the indexation, which I've already objected to. And why I'm asking Minister of Finance, why is it that you did not include, what is it, the parent law 3.2, which is the exercise of option 2? A person has exercised pension payable, you can exercise an option, you be paid instead of pension, a pension at a rate of 3/4 of the pension, together with a gratuity. That provision is, as I say, on the judges, to exclude those who would have taken the option 2, and under former prime ministers. Is there a rationale why it was not done for presidents?
Minister of Finance?
I'd like to say a number of things, Madam Chairman. One, the Honorable Member for Superior, when she was Prime Minister, brought legislation to this House, piloted it, promoted it, supported it, voted for it to add housing allowance to salary for the purpose of pension for judges and for legislators. And therefore, the concept of adding the housing allowance to the salary for the purpose of pension was introduced in this House for the first time and strongly promoted by the member for Superior. I can't understand why, if then, in 2014 or 2015, the member for Superior thought it was a great thing to add the housing allowance to the salary for certain categories of retired persons, it is now a terrible thing. I do not understand. And in addition, Madam Speaker, the option, Madam Chairman, the option of the reduced pension would also benefit from this, because the three-quarters of the amount will be reset as well, Madam Speaker.
Okay.
And that is what we debated when we debated in 2009, when we did the reset. It was whether you reset the 3/4 or reset the 4/4. So I don't understand why the member has done this 360 or 180 about turn when the member promoted this. And you spoke about not being personal, but the member for Superior has spoken about the incumbent president and quoted a figure, I don't know why, as to what the incumbent president will get if this bill is passed. And therefore, I think I'm entitled to quote a figure of $60,000, which the current member for Superior enjoys as a pension. I think I can tell the public that, because she put numbers into the system.
Member for Orpuchis? Member for Superior, please. Member for Orpuchis.
Thank you. Madam Chair, the issue I wanted to raise, one of the issues that was raised by the member for Superior as to why is it for the president emoluments in section 4 here, clause 4, the issue of the option is off the table, whereas for the others it is on the table. That's one. And secondly...
But just now, I believe that
Yes,
first question
secondly,
was answered.
Okay. The question I have now is, given the 2014 piece of legislation you're referring to that was allowed to lapse in the Parliament, would you agree that the economic...
I'm so sorry, Madam Speaker.
Would you agree that the economic conditions in 2014-15 were fundamentally different from the economic conditions today? When you are now, and this is not a debate, when you are now going to increase and enhance pensions for high and maybe the highest office holder in the context of an economic situation that is fundamentally different from 3-4 years ago.
Minister of Finance.
I'm not sure what that has to do with this amendment, but there are two things, yes. I'm not sure what all of that has to do with this, but I will answer. Firstly, a pension is not for 1 year. The pension that was being proposed by the UNC in 2014 was not for 2014 only. It would have been applicable to 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And none of us had a crystal ball to see into the future. None of us could have said at that time in 2014 that oil will remain at $100. So therefore, it makes no sense. It's trite to say the economic circumstances were better then, so that's why the UNC brought a bill to add housing allowance and personal and salary. And it's trite, because that pension will be in perpetuity. And secondly, the conditions were very different then. It's true, there was a lot of teeth in.
Madam Speaker, that is offensive. That type of statement is offensive. And
Member
Madam
for
Speaker, the member for Lavantil is losing his
Lavantil
cool.
West.
This member opposite is
Mr.
go outside and
Finance.
rest, man, if you're tired.
Minister Finance, while we're not in the House, I think we still have to be parliamentary. So I think you can find another way. You could withdraw that.
Certainly,
another
Madam Speaker. I said he spoke about the economic conditions. I did not refer to any person. I said in 2014 there was a lot of thievery, corruption, and there was.
Okay, so I'm now going to put the question. The question is that clause 4 be amended as circulated by the opposition. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. No. I think the noes have it.
No.
The question is that clause 4 stand part of the bill. The question is that clause 4 now stand part of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. No. I think, okay.
Madam Chairman, you heard that? Naparima said when the revolution come, we will have to run.
If a revolution.
He said when. He said when.
And you should withdraw that.
Madam Speaker, what is this? This parliament has a history of armed insurrection, you know.
Yeah, but
is he promoting an armed insurrection?
Yeah. And members, I think we all have to be much
Disgusting.
more responsible in our behavior. Some things I could excuse on the fact that we are tired, but some things cannot be excused. In any scenario, it's intolerable. Okay, and Member for Naparima, just as loudly as that was said, I would like you to withdraw that. And withdrawing it to the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
I withdraw.
Okay? That caused a lot of pain.
Mr. Embert.
We're voting on our amendment, on ours are circulated.
We are voting on the clause as it stands. The question is that clause 4 now stand part of the bill.
Dr. Rowley. Mr. Ahwari.
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Yes.
Mr. Diaz.
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson Ritchie.
Aye.
Mr. Hines.
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell.
Aye.
Ms. Kudrow.
Aye.
Mr. Garcia.
Yes.
Mrs. Critchford Cooper.
Aye.
Mr. Ford.
Yes.
Mr. Diller.
Aye.
Mrs. Webster.
Aye.
Dr. Gatsby Dolly.
Aye.
Ms. McDonald.
Yes?
Dr. Francis.
Yes.
Mrs. Jennings Smith.
Yes.
Ms. Oliver.
Yes.
Mr. Antwine.
Yes.
Mrs. Smith.
Aye.
Mr. Coffey.
Yes.
Mr. Lee.
No.
Mrs. Prasad Bisasa.
This provision gives the president $1.1 million per year. No, no. Well, you were not personal.
Member for
Swear
Separia,
like so.
Member for Separia, Minister of Finance. Member for Separia, Minister of Finance.
What? My God, how nasty is it? I've been here since.
Honorable members, I now suspend this meeting for 10 minutes, and everybody better get themselves under control.